Christopher Columbus, born in Genoa, Italy in 1451, was captivated by the sea from a young age. The bustling port city, with its vibrant maritime culture, was the perfect backdrop for his burgeoning dreams. He spent his days by the docks, listening to tales of seafaring merchants and dreaming of distant lands. These stories of adventure and discovery ignited a spark within him, fueling his imagination and desire to explore the unknown. Columbus's early years were marked by a thirst for knowledge and a fascination with geography and navigation. He was not just a dreamer, but also a diligent student, eager to learn everything he could about the world and the seas that covered it. He devoured books about Marco Polo's travels and Ptolemy's maps. These texts were his window to the wider world, offering glimpses of distant places and peoples that he longed to see for himself. Driven by ambition and religious zeal, Columbus envisioned a westward route to the East Indies. His faith and determination were unwavering, and he believed that his destiny was to find a new path to these fabled lands. He believed that by sailing west across the Atlantic, he could reach the Orient faster. This bold idea was based on his own calculations and the limited knowledge of the world's geography at the time. Despite his flawed calculations, Columbus remained steadfast in his belief. He was convinced that his plan was sound and that he could achieve what others thought impossible. Little did he know, his voyage would lead to a continent previously unknown to Europeans. This monumental discovery would change the course of history, opening up a new world and forever altering the map of the globe. Armed with his unwavering belief, Columbus sought patronage to fund his vision. His first attempt was with the Portuguese court, but they dismissed his calculations. Undeterred, Columbus turned to Spain and secured an audience with King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella in 1486. The Spanish monarchs, eager to expand their influence, listened to Columbus's proposal. However, they referred his plans to a royal council for evaluation. The council deliberated for years, questioning his calculations and the potential risks. Columbus faced skepticism, but he remained a persuasive advocate. Finally, after persistent lobbying, Queen Isabella agreed to finance his voyage. She recognized the potential rewards Columbus's expedition could bring to Spain. With royal approval and funding, Columbus embarked on a journey that would change the course of history. Columbus meticulously prepared for his voyage, gathering all necessary supplies and studying historical maps and charts to navigate the uncharted waters. He assembled a fleet of 3 ships, each carefully chosen for their durability and capacity to withstand the long journey ahead. The Santa Maria, the Pinta, and the Nina were the vessels that would carry Columbus and his crew into the unknown. Recruiting a crew for such a perilous journey was daunting, as many feared the unknown dangers that lay ahead. Despite the challenges, Columbus managed to gather around 90 men, each driven by the promise of adventure and potential riches. On August 3, 1492, Columbus set sail from Palos de la Frontera in Spain, marking the beginning of a historic voyage. The voyage was fraught with challenges, including unpredictable weather that tested the ship's resilience and the crew's endurance. Supplies began to dwindle, and the crew's fear of the unknown grew with each passing day, leading to increasing tension on board. As weeks turned into months, the crew's morale plummeted, and they threatened mutiny, questioning Columbus's leadership and the feasibility of their mission. Columbus, driven by his unwavering belief in the existence of new lands and glimpses of hope on the horizon, refused to turn back. To motivate his weary crew, he promised rewards to the first man to sight land, hoping to rekindle their spirits and determination. This promise sparked a renewed sense of hope among the sailors, and their spirits were lifted as they continued their journey with a glimmer of optimism. On October 12, 1492, a lookout on the Pinta shouted, "Tierra! Tierra! Land! Land!" The crew's exhaustion gave way to elation and relief. Columbus landed on an island in the Bahamas, naming it San Salvador. He planted the Spanish flag, claiming the land for Spain. Columbus, convinced he had reached the Indies, referred to the native inhabitants as Indians. The indigenous Taíno people greeted the newcomers with curiosity and kindness. They exchanged gifts, with the Europeans offering trinkets and beads, while the Taíno presented parrots and cotton. This encounter marked the beginning of a complex relationship between two vastly different cultures. Columbus, still believing he had reached Asia, spent months exploring the Caribbean. He visited Cuba, mistaking it for mainland China, and Hispaniola, where he established La Navidad. Columbus marveled at the landscapes, flora, fauna, and customs of the indigenous people. Driven by his quest for gold, Columbus initiated trade relations with the Taino. He pressured the indigenous people to reveal the location of gold. As Columbus explored, he claimed each island for Spain, asserting Spanish sovereignty. He saw himself as a representative of God and King, spreading Christianity and expanding the Spanish Empire. His actions laid the foundation for centuries of colonization and exploitation. In January 1493, Columbus set sail for Spain, leaving men at La Navidad. He carried exotic parrots, spices, gold, and several Taino captives as evidence of his discoveries. The return voyage was arduous, with storms testing the limits of his ships and crew. Columbus arrived in Lisbon in March 1493, where he was received with curiosity and envy. News of his discovery spread, making him an instant celebrity. In Barcelona, he presented his findings to King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella. The Spanish monarchs, overjoyed, showered Columbus with honors and titles. His voyage marked a turning point in world history, ushering in an era of European exploration and colonization. Emboldened by his success, Columbus embarked on a second voyage in 1493. This time, he commanded a fleet of 17 ships and over 1,200 men. Upon returning to Hispaniola, Columbus discovered La Navidad destroyed. He established a new settlement, La Isabela, marking the beginning of permanent European settlement in the Americas. The second voyage saw a shift in Columbus's attitude towards the indigenous population. Driven by the demands of colonization, he imposed forced labor on the Taino. This brutal treatment, coupled with European diseases, led to a catastrophic decline in the Taino population. What began as a peaceful encounter descended into violence and exploitation. Columbus's third voyage in 1498 was plagued by numerous difficulties. The journey was fraught with peril from the very beginning, as the ships encountered relentless storms that battered their sails and hulls. He explored the coast of South America, initially believing it to be another island. This miscalculation added to the confusion and challenges faced by the expedition. The voyage was marred by storms, disease, and discontent among the Spanish colonists. Many of the crew members fell ill, and the harsh conditions led to growing unrest and dissatisfaction. Reports of mismanagement and brutality reached the Spanish court. These reports painted a grim picture of the situation in the New World, with accusations of cruelty and poor leadership. King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella, concerned by these troubling reports, sent a royal commissioner to investigate the claims. They needed to understand the true state of their overseas territories. Francisco de Bobadilla arrived in 1500 and was appalled by what he found. The conditions and the treatment of the colonists were far worse than he had anticipated. Bobadilla arrested Columbus and his brothers, charging them with cruelty and mismanagement. The arrest was a dramatic turn of events, shocking many who had once admired Columbus. Columbus returned to Spain in chains, stripped of his titles and authority. This fall from grace was a significant blow to his reputation and his standing at the Spanish court. Despite his fall from grace, Columbus remained convinced of his righteousness and the importance of his discoveries. He continued to believe that his voyages had opened new pathways for exploration and trade, and he never wavered in his conviction that he had achieved something monumental. Although pardoned by King Ferdinand, Columbus never regained his former titles. He was granted permission for a fourth voyage in 1502, focused on finding a westward passage to Asia. This last voyage proved arduous and ultimately futile. Columbus sailed along the coast of Central America, battling storms and hostile natives. He never found the passage to Asia, and his ships had to be abandoned in Jamaica. Columbus and his crew were stranded in Jamaica for a year before being rescued. Columbus, his health failing, died in relative obscurity in 1506. His discoveries continued to reverberate, opening a new chapter in human history. Columbus's voyages had a profound impact on both Europe and the Americas. His discovery ushered in an era of European exploration and colonization. The Columbian Exchange led to the exchange of plants, animals, and ideas between hemispheres. However, this exchange had devastating consequences for indigenous populations. European diseases, forced labor, and cultural destruction decimated their populations. Columbus's legacy is complex and controversial. He is celebrated as a visionary explorer, but also condemned as a ruthless conqueror. His story challenges us to confront the full spectrum of his impact, acknowledging both progress and profound human cost.